It would be very hard to describe the Somme. I don't know that there's ever been a battle like it. I mean, you had two armies in static positions. The movement of either of them would be about 200 yards, the difference between the two basic front lines. And the Somme, which had been built and rebuilt as a battleground by the British, initially to relieve pressure on Verdun, but it became a cesspool. And there were divisions attacking and counterattacking for months. For instance, the Irish Ulster Division, the 36th, attacked in that area on the 1st of July, and they were massacred. They made a slight gain, which is all anyone could hope to do at this point, but there was an aimless gain. I mean, you achieved very little. The towns of Guillemont and Ginchy, it didn't exist as such. They were merely pieces of earth that people said, that's Ginchy.
It would be cliched of me to say that the conflict known in history as World War I changed everything, but it would not be wrong to say so either. In 4 years of bloody stalemate, millions of young men from nations all over the world were gunned down like animals, often without strategic gain. In the chaos, ancient orders fell apart, while new nations were forged. What many may forget is that the First World War shattered any romantic vision people had of war, made possible partly due to the horrific casualty numbers during these 4 years. As a result, Great Britain was initially reluctant to go to war with Germany a quarter of a century later, while the emerging power that was the United States briefly returned to isolationism. What helped bring home the horrors of the war was the poetry of the period. Many poets served on the front lines of the war and saw the carnage firsthand, among the most famous of which would be Siegfried Sassoon. Like many of his countrymen, Sassoon initially supported the war and enlisted in the British Army in 1914, serving in both the Sussex Yeomanry and the Royal Welsh Fusiliers. For his actions he was awarded the Military Cross and was later made a Commander of the Order of the British Empire by King George VI in 1951. During his time in the service, Sassoon was disenchanted by the war and increasingly became a pacifist. He was wounded in action in 1917. By this point he sought to have himself court-martialed, but was instead declared temporarily insane. It was likely this experience that motivated Sassoon to write Does It Matter? Read here by Michael Jaston in the 1970 BBC drama Mad Jack.
Hell, what does it matter who shoots who? What does it matter?
Does it matter? Losing your legs. For people will always be kind, and you need not show that you mind when the others come in after hunting to gobble their muffins and eggs. Does it matter? Losing your sight. There's such splendid work for the blind, and people will always be kind as you sit on the terrace remembering and turning your face to the light. Do they matter, those dreams from the pit? You can drink and forget and be glad, and people won't say that you're mad, for they'll know you fought for your country, and no one will worry a bit.
Does It Matter was published in 1918 as part of Sassoon's Counterattack and Other Poems. It is considered to be the most important poem of the collection as it sets the tone for those that follow it. Does It Matter provides insights into the minds of wounded soldiers as well as both their physical and psychological wounds. Sassoon never returned to the front lines. After staying at Craiglockhart Hospital near Edinburgh, Sassoon was later stationed in Ireland to train new recruits and later Egypt. While he was at Craiglockhart, he met fellow war poet Wilfred Owen. Owen was wounded in action in 1917 while serving in France. Despite his pacifism, Owen later returned to the front lines, where he was killed in action on the 4th of November 1918, 1 week before the armistice. According to Carolyn Forsch in her book Against Forgetting, 20th Century Poetry of Witness, Owen was considered to be the most foremost anti-war poet of the First World War. In the autumn of 1917, Owen penned his most famous poem, Anthem for Doomed Youth. The poem laments the horrific loss of life that took place on the Western Front, and similar to Sassoon, criticizes the jingoism along with the pomp and circumstances celebrating the conflict.
What pressing bells for these who die as cattle? Only the monstrous anger of the guns. Only the stuttering rifle's rapid rattle can patter out their hasty horizons. No mockeries now for them, no prayers, no bells, nor any voice of mourning save the choirs, the shrill, demented choirs of wailing shells, and bugles calling for them from sad shires. What candles may be held to speed them all? Not in the hands of boys, but in their eyes shall shine the holy glimmer of goodbyes. The pallor of girls' brows shall be their pall, their flowers the tenderness of patient minds, and each slow dusk a drawing down of blinds.
It can be argued that the modernist poetry movement was influenced by the horrors of World War I and vice versa. The works of Sassoon and Owen, along with many other war poets at the time, followed the philosophy of no truth unfitting whenever they described the horrors of the conflict. By refusing to sanitize their work, the war poets of the Great War helped shatter a long-standing romantic vision of combat and duty. As I've mentioned, Wilfred Owen was killed in combat a week before the war came to a close. A day after his death, he was promoted to the rank of lieutenant. He now rests at the Ors Communal Cemetery. Siegfried Sassoon survived the war and later wrote a series of novels based on his life. He died in 1967.